my name is Sam. Thanks for checking out this video. If you get to the end and liked it, then subscribe, bell notification, give the video a thumbs up. We are sitting on the floor today because I just got back from a 2-hour-long walk and my feet, I fell on the ice earlier this week, so that hurt my foot, and then walking on it for 2 hours because it's finally nice here. Snow is melting, but everything is uneven because the snow is melting and somewhere it's just pure ice, and so I can't sit on my feet right now. So we're gonna do a wrap up for February because I am tired of my tower of books just sitting. I just want to put them away, okay? It genuinely irks me. Hello! It genuinely irks me that, that they're just there when they've been read and they should be on the shelf. So, we're gonna talk about books I read, general highlights, and then we'll just do like life successes updates and go from there and try and make this not an enormously long video while giving input on books. And instead of giving it a star ratings, because I feel like that's just all over the place, we're going to have a new rating system where we're going to say either, I'm upset that I wasted time on it, I'm upset that I wasted money on it, I'm not upset, either way, I'm not upset that I read it but thankful I didn't buy it, and thankful I bought. You know, we'll see how that goes, okay? So starting off with a group read, we did a group read of Bringing Down the Duke and its sequel. So this month I read Bringing Down the Duke by Evie Dunmore as a reread. Definitely enjoyed it. Happy I own it, happy I read it, and happy I reread it, and very excited for book 3 to come out. Then I read Unnatural Magic by C.M. Wagoner, and I've tried this book twice and it's just not for me. I don't exactly know quite why, but quite bored reading it both attempts. So not upset that I tried it, but upset that I spent money on it. So I'm going to unhaul it, unfortunately, and I don't anticipate reading the other book that author just had come out. Then I read Fate of the Unfallen by an author that I cannot remember the name of off the top of my head through the library. This is one that it was enjoyable, actually. I have been enjoying a lot more adult fantasy, so I don't know why I'm so surprised every time, but I enjoyed this. I think I will probably read the sequel through the library. I don't anticipate buying a copy for myself though, either a physical or a digital copy. I'll just keep going through the library if I do end up reading the rest of the series. It wasn't bad, it wasn't terrible, just not something I anticipate wanting to have on my bookshelves, you know? I read The Test as well by Sylvan Neuvel. It's a novella, and it was a weird book. I wasn't totally sure what I was expecting from it, but it's like a hostage sort of situation during like a British citizenship test, which was weird as heck. Very good read though. I'm happy I read it. I'm happy I own a digital copy of it. I'm curious how that's going to be adapted because it got purchased for, I think it was TV miniseries maybe? I don't know. I just remember that, and so I'm curious to see how that'll get adapted. It was a very weird premise, very weird book, but in an intriguing way. You gonna sleep in this position? What's your gameplay, man? I don't know. Either way, I'm happy I read it and happy I own a digital copy of it. I don't love the physical copy cover, so maybe if they release a new cover when the movie comes out or something, maybe I'll pick it up then. Then I read Return of the Thief by Megan Whalen Turner. I waited for forever this book. It felt like it was originally released to come out like I think a year and a half ago now at this point. And I haven't bought a physical copy of it because I'm waiting for the paperback to match the rest of the series that I have, or the rest of the copies of this series that I have. It is a conclusion. At least to my understanding, having read the book, and based on the summary it says the wrap up. But I saw someone review saying like they don't know something about like the next book, and I was like, what are you talking about? It says in the description, like, it's the conclusion. And it wraps everything up. So, like, I don't know what that person was thinking. Maybe I don't know. We read the books differently. But anyways, I am very excited. Very excited. This series is just, I don't know how I missed it. Like, it came out, I guess, at a time when I was just not paying attention to YA fantasies. And it's taken several years between books, but I'm glad that I came here at the tail end and got to read all the books pretty closely together. I really like the new covers as well. Happy I read it. I'm happy with how the whole series wrapped up, because to my understanding is the wrap up of the whole series. And I am definitely going to be waiting for the paperback copy of the book to come out so I can add it to my collection, because that is definitely a series that I will reread pretty often, I think, every couple of years. So happy at, read it, and plan on owning it. I also read The Dead Gin of Ciro. This was another weird, interesting read. This author I just find very interesting premises, and I think this is it's novella 1, and then there's a second novella, and then the third book in this world is going to be a full-blown novel, from my understanding. It comes out this year in 2021. I'm very curious about them. They're very high-paced, especially for novellas. I just feel like you just read it, and then I like turn the page. I'm like, what do you mean it's ended? Like, what do you mean? I don't own the covers. I don't love the covers of this series, but also they seem kind of disjointed, so I'm not totally sure what's going to happen. Maybe they'll like bind them up with the full novel that's coming out or something like that. I don't know. I think I may be interested in investing my own money into owning physical copies of them. I'm definitely curious in the full novel that this author has come out. And the author just writes very interesting worlds. So happy I spent my time and potentially money on it. And then I read A Touch of Darkness by Scarlett St. Clair. I wanted to love this book so much because the book covers are very pretty. But wow, this was like, I'm sure it's for people. It's just not for me. Even in terms of like, I like some romances. This was just not even remotely to my taste in any capacity. I burst out scream laughing several times at several sentences that I know were not supposed to be funny. I just thought they were hilariously cheesy and ridiculous. And it felt almost a little bit like telenovela-y in the way that like I couldn't take anything in this serious because it just seemed so ridiculous and dramatic. And the whole Hades and Persephone, even the sex scenes felt like I was just reading them and I was like, okay, like what? Just no part of this connected with any of my tastes or my likes or anything. So disappointed I spent money on it and probably could have invested my time in another book. I'm sure this is for people. It's just not for me, unfortunately. So I will be unhauling. I read Jade City by Fonda Lee after that, and oh, this was such a good book. Oh my god. I've owned this book for a couple years, and it kind of came up on my radar again when it got announced that it was optioned off, I think for television rights, because Hollywood doesn't write anything anymore. They just take books and ruin them a lot of the time. This was weird, but in a super interesting, like, it's so, I don't know. It feels kind of like elements of our world, but very much not. And like powers are earned by people who possess Jade. So there's people trying to possess Jade, but there's also this like mafia sort of gang vibes to it. It's very weird mashup. I don't think they've really read anything similar to that. Maybe even this month was maybe a little bit of similarities to These Violent Delights, but both of those books, when I read them, I was like, I don't know that I've really read anything like these books before. So I really liked them. This would be an amazing, something, if they done well, this could be a really, really cool TV show. Really cool. I really liked all the characters, the relationships, the messiness, especially with the sister in the main family, that she's, you know, arguably betrayed them in the past, and then it comes back when things are in chaos and one of the brothers takes over the family, and like, it's very messy and in a chaotic way that is, it feels very fast-paced, despite it is a relatively like longish book. It's not short by any means. I definitely plan on picking up the sequel, definitely. And I'm wondering, I don't hate the covers, the existing ones. I don't own them though. I only own the audiobook for the first book, so I'm curious if it ever does end up getting developed and produced into a show. Maybe I'll like those covers, or if I see the trilogy maybe in a box set or on sale or something once the third book comes out, maybe I'll do that. But I'm definitely very, very interested in going to watch for the third book, which comes out in 2021, I believe, and the second book, which is already out. And I also didn't really connect dots, I don't think, until this month, that she's a Canadian author who wrote this, and an author of color. We don't really have many Canadian authors, period, let alone authors of color. So that's even more reason to support. So very happy I spent my money on it. I intend to invest more money on it, and more time on this series, definitely, and highly recommend, because I feel like I've heard people mention this before, but like as a thing that they've hauled, but maybe not really read or reviewed. So I would highly recommend this one. I also read In the Garden of Spite by Kamila, I don't know, Bruce? No, it wouldn't be Kamala, it's just Camila, right? Who's that girl who left 5th that girl group? Fifth Harmony? Camilla. She's the one fake dating Shawn Mendes, right? Yeah, Camilla. That's right. I think so. The Black Widow of Laporte. This woman has a rough upbringing in Scandinavia and then immigrates to the United States when it's kind of being settled by Europe as like the good PR that they did of like, this is the country of like development and prosperity and anyone can become anything. So she moves there after a rough upbringing, and she's a very interesting character, and I feel like it kind of created her into this actual being in terms of like the true crime aspect, because she's assumed to have killed a bunch of people and like committed a bunch of insurance fraud and killed husbands and all that sort of stuff. But we don't really know a ton of information about her. There's not a lot of records or documents or anything like that. I don't even know if she's actually dead. So, well, she is dead now, but if she died the way that they think she died. So like it's very interesting that the author managed to like took this opportunity to like develop a character that is a bit weird and gray, but I really liked it. I really liked it. I think this is one I want to reread closer to Halloween for sure. And I don't know that it was necessarily something I would always enjoy, depending on the writing and the characters and everything like this, but this was super interesting, and it brought her through these different stages of life where it was just interesting to read from her perspective and be like, the whole time though, you're like, she had a really rough upbringing. Obviously some of this is just best guesses or completely fictionalized, but the character, you can see the grayness and not agree with a lot that she does, but you're like, what was an impact of how she grew up and all of these events of trauma that she went through, you know? So definitely not upset that I spent time or money on this, and we'll definitely be doing a reread around Halloween and the ghosty time. And then I read an arc of The Lost Apothecary, which has since come out. It was an interesting read. I know I say that an awful lot. Interesting in the way that this is a debut work from my understanding, and there's dual timelines in this between like present day, the main character is going through a potential separation divorce with her husband who she found out he's cheating while she's trying to get pregnant, and then this time period a couple, I don't know, 2 centuries or in the past of an apothecary who has been giving women things to get rid of people that women for less than for husbands that women maybe don't want to be espoused to anymore, you know what I mean? So it alternates between these timelines. For a debut author to be able to maintain relatively similar pacing in both timelines, I was actually very impressed. At the end of each chapter, it switches between the timelines, and each time I'd get to the end of the chapter and it'd switch and be like, bitch, no, finish this, I want to know where this is going. But then you'd switch over and you're like, okay, actually, this is also very interesting. So at no point was I like, oh, can we just skip this timeline until it picks up? They're both maintained pretty steady paces, so they were both developed pretty equally, and I found the characters in both of them very interesting. The conclusion, I liked it for the most part, but I kind of wish there would have been like maybe one more chapter epilogue to show where the main character in the present time, where she goes after this, because it's a bit more of like an open-ended ending, but I would have liked just one more chapter being like, and after she made these choices, this is her path. Even if it was just like she lives in this country now and does this instead. Because you talk the whole book about everything that she gave up for her husband and the manipulation, and now that she's away from that, where does that path go? You know? So I don't know that I really intend on buying a copy of it. I've read it, I enjoyed it. I do recommend for others to read it, especially if you've like dual timelines, but I don't know that this is something I plan on ever reread. Here again to the finicky part. I also this month did a reread of Timekeeper by Tara Sim, and then tried to read Chainbreaker. And was going to read Firestarter, which I didn't own because I wasn't sure if I totally wanted to buy the third book, and I was just going to use it through the library and then decide from there. I read Timekeeper, I think it was like 2.5, if not 3 years ago now, and I loved it. It was different, it was very steampunky, I liked the characters, I liked the plot, I liked the world. It was a very interesting concept of like time freezing when the clock breaks and everything like that. But having reread it, this is just not something I'm interested in anymore. My reading tastes have really changed over the last few years. It's not by any means bad, and I just didn't want to continue on reading the series. I like that space in my brain where I think about the first time I read Timekeeper and really loved it, and the characters and the romance was really sweet. But having reread it now, it's just not something taste-wise that I'm interested in reading anymore. I've grown out of the phase of where this appealed to me. So I am not sad that I spent time on it the first time I read it. I think I do need to get better though at reading books series closer together, because the length of time which developed my reading taste to where this is no longer appealing to me, the reason I didn't read it was just like I just hadn't made time in my TBR to read it, because I think I would have really enjoyed the rest of the series, which is sad. So I'm not sad that I put time into it or even money. It's just something I'm no longer interested in taste-wise. So I will be unhauling book 1 and 2 for someone else to enjoy. It was a rough month for YA. I tried reading Bring Me Their Hearts by Sarah Wolf. It's another one I got a few chapters in and just nothing about it was interesting to me. Didn't like the character, nothing. So I remember being like, no, I'm not going into this, forcing myself into it to get into a reading slump, not interested. So this is unfortunately disappointed that I spent time and money on a book that I'm not able to consume. But I think, again, I've owned this for several years. I think I probably would have enjoyed it if I had read it when I bought it, before my tastes evolved and kind of felt burnt out from YA fantasies. So this, unfortunately, spent money on, didn't enjoy it, will be unhauling it. Then I read Lore by Alexandra Bracken. This is one that, after having some no's in the YA fantasy, I was kind of expecting to probably not like, but this was really interesting. I know some people have really not been liking it. They felt like maybe it was underdeveloped, but for a standalone, I really liked this. I feel like this is just a bit more of like, we've had, like, you know, the Percy Jackson with the Greek and the Roman gods messed with, and that's, you know, a bit more middle grade, and then this could be the YA stepping stone, and then you have the Song of Achilles, and you have those more adult ones, but, like, I liked this. I'm glad I own it. I plan on rereading it every once in a while. I like this a lot. I'm glad I spent money, and I'm glad I spent time on it. I picked up The Forever Sea by Joshua Philip Johnson. This is one that I think some people will go in thinking it is a high-paced piratey book. It is not. There are pirates, and there's ships, and there's mystery, and some old lady walking off a ship into the ocean, and everyone thinking she's dead, and maybe she's not. It's very interesting, but it's slow-paced. It is medium to slow-paced, I would definitely say. So be aware of that. If that's something that doesn't deter you from books, I would fully recommend giving this a shot. I'm glad I own it. I'm glad I read it. I really like the characters. I like that the story in here is being told to someone. So it's like the first scene, you know, with the Princess Bride, where the grandpa is telling the son the story of the Princess Bride. It's like that. I love that touch for some reason. I don't know why. I will absolutely be reading the sequel, and I will probably do a reread of this with that book. It is a bit dense. Don't force yourself to run through it. But I enjoyed it a lot. Definitely a lot. And I want more people to read it so I can talk to people about it. So definitely glad I spent my time and my money on this. And then I absolutely blew through Legendborn by Tracy Deonn. It makes no sense that this is a debut work. None. I also don't know how I missed it, but I didn't know this had King Arthur influences, which even more surprised me in a great way. I loved this book, despite it's a chunker of a YA book. It's like 500 pages. It's so good. I blew through it. I'm not a big fan of contemporaries with magic a lot of the time, but this worked for me. I loved the school societies. That could be its own, like, this could be bought and optioned and developed into a TV show and just the world expanded on, having Tracy Deonn involved in the development of that, of maybe blowing up even more problems within these secret societies within this university situation. So cool. I really loved the elements that were brought in about with the history because of geography. That was one thing I was like, because someone told me that there's a kind of dual timelines in this, and I was like, okay, but isn't it set in the southern United States? Like, how are we handling, like, what part of that is it going to be, you know, either not touch on it enough, or is it so focused because it's labeled as a contemporary, but is it actually historical fiction? I was kind of confused, but it's so well done. It's so well done. And this reminded me a lot of Thorn. When I read Thorn by Intisar Kanahani, I was so confused how it was a debut work, because the author, it's a bigger book, but the author used the space and the time properly. There's no sections in here that I was like, this isn't needed. This doesn't play a role. This doesn't develop characters. This is just like a random scene. No point did I read anything in here that I don't think should have been in here. So like for a debut author to have such like a strong voice and awareness of like what needs to be in here, what's like, they've plotted all this out for this stuff to be used, is amazing. It was so good. I was so surprised for everything in this book. It was fantastic. Glad I spent my money and my time on this. I am stalking the Goodreads page of the sequel to find out if it's actually coming out in 2021 or if we're gonna have to wait until 2022. But wow, I was crazy impressed with this one. Picked up Roman and Jewel by Donna Davis. This was one of my most anticipated books of the year, and I did think it was a bit of a letdown. I started getting concerned because as the release date was approaching, I saw all the ARC reviews coming in. It was like 3.6 average on Goodreads right now, I think, while I was looking at it. But it was pitched ever as like Hamilton meets Shakespeare, Romeo and Juliet a little bit, in like a contemporary hip-hop way. I liked parts of this, but like it just, I don't know where I was thinking the plot would go, but it just felt like a bit of an underwhelming plot. And it was short too, so I was like, what was the purpose of this? Like, it's not like the start of the series or like a plot to be developed or these characters to be developed in a prequel story or whatever. It just felt like, I don't want to say meaningless because I don't think that's right, but I was just not sure what the purpose of this was, you know? So I'm not upset that I spent my time or money on it, but I do think I'll be unhauling it. I don't see myself rereading something like this. It could totally be too, because I'm not a big fan of contemporaries, that this was just not originally for me, and I got too attached to the concept of it being like a Shakespeare retelling, which I love. So that's something to keep in mind if you're an enjoyer of contemporary. Maybe look more into this, because that's not normally my cup of tea, and this could be your cup of tea. Then I picked up A Hero Born by Jin Young. It's translated by Anna Holmwood, and I own this one, and then books 2 and 3, and then book 4 comes out in, I think it's August. This is a translation. I have not had a ton of luck with translations over the years. I still try them, and I know it's not everything is going to be, things are going to be lost in translation, but especially the concept of not even sharing an alphabet, let alone like all the other issues of translation. I was unsure and concerned about this one. It is wildly popular in China. It sold over 300 million copies. I think it's originally written in Cantonese. If I could learn Cantonese and then go read this, I would do that too, because I'm sure there's stuff that would get lost in translation. But despite that, this was an excellent translation. So good. I was concerned with just the fact, like, the last translation I think I read was Winter's Promise, and I just felt nothing for the characters, for the plot. I didn't know what was happening of it. I felt a little disjointed and choppy, even though suddenly people are super into it on TikTok. So I was concerned, because that at least has the benefit of having the same, like, general alphabet from French to English. But this was so well done. So well done. I loved this. I don't know that I could honestly regurgitate it, because just a lot happens and it's all over the place. But I now want to learn more about the time period this is set in, because I absolutely know nothing about Chinese history. I just, like, we don't learn that shit in North American schools, even in Canada. I know, like, Genghis Khan, but honestly that's probably mostly from, like, Russian history. And, like, I don't know anything about China. Like, just before, like, it became what it is now, this giant dictator-y weird country that it is now. I don't know anything about it. So this was really, really interesting. I feel like I would be able to appreciate even more of this once I learned all that stuff. So that's something I'm going to look into, some nonfiction books that are maybe not super dense or dry. This was incredibly interesting though. I definitely plan on reading the next book and picking up the fourth book when it does come out. It's like, it's I don't know. It says here on back, like, in a world where kung fu is magic, kingdoms vie for power, and the battle to become the ultimate kung fu master unfolds, and unlikely hero is born. It felt like an epic fantasy, like an epic adult fantasy, but it's not super, super dense. So, I felt like some of the character names may be difficult for people in the West to learn or memorize or keep track of, because they don't have the same name structures as we do here. But as a consumer of K-pop, I'm a bit more able to remember and keep track of those names that might, for the average person in the West, start blending together. So that wasn't really an issue for me. Incredibly excited and interested to read the rest of the series. This did not disappoint me. We have established I also did a reread of A Rogue of One's Own by Evie Dunmore. This is the sequel to Bringing Down the Duke, and then the third book, Portrait of a Scotsman, is supposed to come out in September, I believe it is, and I definitely plan on reading it. I think I actually like this book more than book one because the romance in this is just like, I love it. I love Tristan and Lucy so much. So much, so good, so good. Happy I spent my money and my time on this. In anticipation of the newest book to come out, I did a reread of the most recent release of Veronica Speedwell book, A Murderous Relation. I think this is the third time I've read this book. It was good. It was Veronica Speedwell. This channel doesn't criticize Veronica Speedwell. Then I read These Violent Delights by Chloe Gong, and wow, this girl makes me feel like an underachiever. There's a sequel to this book coming out. The cover has been revealed, and she also, in the last week or so, announced that she sold a spin-off duology of this. I think that's great for her. It's been sitting on New York Times, I think, since it came out, but she's an undergrad student. But honestly, I was not totally sure what to expect. People have been loving this, and then like, people have been telling me that they love books in YA, and I read them and I'm like, I don't like this. But this was like a Legendborn situation. Pleasantly surprised I loved it. It is set 1920s, like, I think it was originally pitched as like The Godfather in 1920s Shanghai. I loved it, and there's a bit of a Romeo and Juliet retelling. Tons of Jade City vibes. This and Jade City have a lot of similar vibes. I'm not saying they're copies of each other, but just like the structures of the families and how they kind of run the city, and then something threatening them was very interesting. I was surprised in this one that they had Chinese communists being the threat. I feel like that's a dangerous thing to put in books, because you're automatically, as soon as you put that in, cutting out a whole market that you can really pitch it to. Because we know that China's not going to buy that, translate into Cantonese, and let you sell it to China, right? So it was interesting, to say the very, very least. I did not know where this was going in the ending. Everyone told me the ending had a big twist, but like still wildly surprised, despite the fact that I know how Romeo and Juliet ends. Everyone warned me it was a big twist. Still was freaking surprised. Can't understand why. The whole like people are like suddenly like dying because of this potential illness, but no one knows how it's passing. It was super interesting in trying to figure out who was spreading it. And we just automatically demonized, you know, Chinese communists. It was so interesting. So interesting. Definitely planning on reading the sequels, especially after how this ends. And I absolutely love the covers of this series as well. So I'm very excited for the sequel. This is one of this and Legendborn YA books have really stood out. I just happened to read them the same month. Standout YAs so far this year, of books that I've actually liked despite struggling with YAs. So I would highly suggest this book. I do not think it's overhyped whatsoever, which I'm very excited that I could join in on the hype on a YA fantasy for once. I accidentally put the book back on the shelf, and since I'm already sitting, I'm not getting up to go get it, but I did a reread of Nevermore by Jessica Townsend. I also read The Puppet Master's Apprentice. It was alright. I think it's one that, again, if I had read this 2 to 3 years ago, maybe would have enjoyed it more. It's an alright fantasy. Don't let that deter you from reading it if you like YA fantasies. I think it's an interesting twist, but not upset I spent my time on it, but I do not intend on spending money on it. This month, the trailer for Shadow and Bone dropped. And then I watched it nonstop for like a day and couldn't stop thinking about it. So I decided to reread the trilogy. Even though I did this last year, like anticipating the show coming out, but I had to do it again. So it took me a couple extra, I think a day and a half extra to finish Rune and Rising. So that will be in next month's wrap up. But in February's wrap up, I did do a reread of Shadow and Bone and a Siege and Storm. And can I just tell you, I think this is the third time I've read this series. I don't hate Mal. I just don't think I will ever hate Mal. I understand that he's not as developed as some of the other characters, and there's this whole TikTok joke I've seen, but the fact that I'm pretty sure Elena is gay because she literally has like vague descriptions about the men, and then as soon as she describes, is it Genya or whatever it is, it's super specific, and everyone's like, girl, you gay. And though I still do kind of wish Le Bardugo as like maybe a pre-order incentive, or just like, I don't know, just for shits and giggles would put an alternative ending to this series on her website of what would happen oh, maybe I shouldn't spoil this, of what would happen if Elena ended up with someone different than she does in the actual series wrap-up, you know? Also, I underappreciated Nikolai. I will admit, I don't know what was going on in my life for the past 2 times I read this, but I just was meh about Nikolai. And now, having reread it, especially Siege and Storm, I underappreciated that man. So, bit of a wrap-up. Least favorite, I'm gonna go with A Touch of Darkness. There are other books here this month that I read and was underwhelmed by, but having read them, I was like, you know what? At a different point in my life, I think I would have genuinely enjoyed this book. My reading tastes have just developed, changed, matured, whatever. But A Touch of Darkness, I don't think there is ever a time, ever in my reading history, that I would have enjoyed that book. Most surprising, I'm gonna go with The Hero Born, because it is a translation. Those can be super messy, and just disjointed and lose a lot of their flair and taste. But know what? I really liked that book. And favorite is gonna go to Legendborn. Just something about that book is still sitting with me, and I'm still thinking about it, and I am very excited for that sequel and incredibly impressed that it was a debut work. Just incredibly impressed. What did I do in February? I kept my house put together and didn't totally fall apart in February on the rough days when thinking about my grandfather. I kept on track with my food. I didn't really go impulse spend or buy a bunch of junk food or anything like that. I'm still staying on track. I went to the doctor. Okay, I'm a millennial. I panic having to make appointments at doctors or just talking on the phone with anyone. I also am just someone who I don't have chronic health issues, and I know other people do. So I feel bad taking up space in doctor schedules just in case someone with a more severe issue could use it. I genuinely put off going to the doctor because I feel bad then. It's just millennial anxiety at this point. But I actually freaking went to the doctor. I've been to the doctors 5 times in the last 30 days, which sounds excessive. It is for me. I went for my annual physical, for my family doctor, which I keep forgetting to go get my blood work done because I hate needles. But I've been to the eye doctor 3 times in February. Because of my eye. If you haven't been able to tell, for months now, since October, I have had an irritated eye, chronic eye irritation, whatever. Can't figure out what it was. I've changed around my makeup, my face creams, moisturizers, my soaps, my laundry stuff, contacts and glasses, contact glasses solution, the amount of time I'm spending on computer, the amount of sleep I'm getting. I can't figure out what it is. It's been happening at home, at work, when I was in Ontario. Like, I don't know what it is. They've tried ointments, several different ointments through my eye doctor. It clears up for a couple days, and then for 2 to 3 days my eye is bloodshot red and burning, and I can't, it just cries nonstop. And it's just one eye, and it's the top eyelid that is irritated. It cleared up for a little while, and then I think it's fine, and then it comes back. So the problem, especially for me, has been when I go to book an eye doctor appointment, they don't take walk-ins. So they're like, okay, we can take you in a day or 2 days. And by that time, my eye irritation has gone down. I don't know what is doing it, but it's gone down. So when I go there, I don't know that they can really treat it because it's not inflamed. So this past week or so, I went to the walk-in clinic finally, and they referred me to an ophthalmologist. So I will wait for the ophthalmologist to call, and hopefully I can get it figured out. So basically, for the most part, going to stop wearing anything if my eye is even remotely watery. I know it's not the makeup causing it, and I just like wearing makeup. So today I put on eyeliner because my eye wasn't watering, but it's just frustrating and annoying, and I don't know what the heck is causing it. It's nothing topical, and it doesn't look like it's an allergic reaction because it's the exact same spot every single time, and it's not happening in consistency with anything. It looks like an allergen in my eye or something inside, not topical. So hopefully the ophthalmologist can figure it out, and I can keep on the track of contacting medical professionals when I need them, instead of self-guilting myself into not getting treatment in case someone with a more severe issue has one, and then letting things get super worse to the point where my eye is bloodshot and burning. So that's been my February. What was your February like for books or life? Let me know. I will put these books in the comment section down below. I will put the effort in today and copy and paste some links. I'm so excited to get vaccinated. I am unfortunately 28 and in good health despite burning eye once in a while. So I am at the bottom of the list for priority, but it says spring/early summer in Alberta. So maybe enough anti-vaxxer Karens will not want the vaccines and think that peppermint essential oils will cure it, that maybe mine will jump up. I don't care. I'm just excited. I got my notifications on for whenever I am eligible. I will be signing up for an appointment to get the vaccine, whatever one it is, when I can. I'm very excited for it, so if you can get your vaccine, take advantage of it. I'm jealous of y'all, okay? Yeah, so just don't be an asshole and get vaccinated if you can. Wear a mask until then and probably after, based on what doctors say.